welcome Pastor as he comes to bring the word.
Today, number 5 on this series, escape your psychological Alcatraz. Escape your psychological Alcatraz. We oftentimes sentence ourselves to prison. We put ourselves mentally, psychologically in prison. Slavery, where one person could own another person and people were sold on the auction block like cattle at the stockyards. That, thank God, was abolished in this country over 150 years ago. There is another slavery that exists today. People doing work that they hate, living a lifestyle they don't like, doing things they don't want to do, and going places they really don't want to go. Enslaved. What is your Alcatraz? What is your prison? I'm going to give you several things that I see. Now, this is number 5, and I'm taking you to levels that most people never get a chance to go. You don't get this in universities, colleges. This is a lifetime of experience. Alcatraz is an island on San Francisco Bay. We used to take the ship in and out of there, and we could always see Alcatraz. It's just a small island. They decided to build a prison on it. And that prison is closed now. I think it's open for tourists. But the Alcatraz that people create in their own mind, number 1 is the Alcatraz of the fear of people. Did you ever want to do something, and really there was nothing wrong with what you wanted to do, but you didn't do it because you were afraid of what people might think? That's called peer pressure. And it's real in everybody's life. Fear of what people think. You're often listening to people that do not have a clue about what they're even talking about. Free advice is everywhere. And it's worth every penny of it. You would be surprised at how much advice I get on how to pastor a church. What I should preach and what I shouldn't preach. I'm going to preach what I think God wants preached, and really it doesn't matter what you think about it. Jock mentioned it this morning. I don't preach for you. I preach for an audience of 1. If I please him, then it doesn't matter what happens to you. So I'm just preaching to please him. Opinions. They sort of like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. Taking counsel from just anybody is sort of like taking your Ferrari or your Rolls Royce to a shade tree mechanic to be worked on. You are too important to be worked on by any shade tree advisor. Don't go to a loser to learn how to be a winner. If you want to get advice on success, how to be a a success and have a breakthrough in your life? Go to someone who's accomplished what you want to accomplish. They've done what you want to do. That's where you get your advice. Ignore your critics. They're not doing anything anyway. You can always measure the size of your critic before you listen to what he says. And it's interesting that the greater the breakthrough you have in your life and the more you grow, the more successful you become, the more critics you wind up having. Everybody wants to criticize you. The more successful a church is, the more critics the pastor has, and the more the church is gossiped about. They always find something. Criticism is a sign that somebody envies you. They wish they were where you are. So they criticize you for what you're doing. Church, I don't know how hard I can stress this. Associate with people who are not going to judge you. They live by the rule, live and let live. Now, I have a rule with all of my neighbors. What you do on your side of the fence is none of my business. And what I do on my side of the fence, none of your business. Live your life and let others live theirs without being judged every time you turn around about something. Number 2, fear of people, number 1. Number 2 is fear of failure. Alcatraz. You sentence yourself to life in prison. When you live your life in the fear of people, or when you live your life in the fear of failure. People who have a fear of failure, they just have a poor self-image. They just don't like themselves very much. God said to Solomon, wise man, he said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, I've explained that to you. We've turned that into a positive statement, but that wasn't what Solomon was saying. It is a very positive saying. I gave you two statements when we started this series. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What you think in your mind will become what it is. What you think in your mind will happen in time. And what you visualize, you will realize. So be careful what you put in your brain. How do you break out of this fear of failure? You talk yourself up, not down. Some people are always down on themselves. It's what I say to me that counts. Did you get that? It's what I say to me that counts. It's not what anybody else says, not what your so-called friends or your advisors or whatever. It's what you say to yourself that's going to tell the story. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Think why you can do something, not why you can't do it. Think, I'm going to win, not lose. I'm going to try something and I'm going to succeed. I'm not going to fail. When you say, I'm going to succeed, I'm going to win, what you're doing, your mind begins to work to find ways that you can succeed in what you're doing. Number 3. You got the first 2? Number 3. It's too late for me. I had my chance and I missed it. I guess I'm just a born loser. Opportunity knocked on my door and there was nobody home. Too late for me. I'm just too old to try anything else. And besides that, 15 more years and I can retire. You just sentenced yourself to 15 years in prison. Maybe you better take a breath. Number 4, security, the prison of security. Now this is a little strange, but the more security that you have, the less psychological freedom that you can enjoy. Be yourself. Don't try to copy somebody else. And besides this, all this rushing around, if you win the rat race, all you've done is prove that you're the number one rat. Unless you are the lead dog in the dog sled team, your view never changes. Joe's sitting over there saying, she just don't believe I said that. I have to go home. You do believe it. You believe I said that. Oh. Let me get back. Come on, get back with me. Let me give you 3 rules to live by if you want a breakthrough in your life or you want to be a success in anything you do. Number 1, be yourself. Be yourself. Dare to be an individual and don't try to copy anybody else. I told my sons, do what you're comfortable with doing. Don't try to copy me. When I was in Bible college, sometimes they would have some of us who were there to learn how to be ministers. We would speak at chapel services, and sometimes they would have one of the pastors from one of the local churches in to speak at chapel. They had this one guy in, and he was a very good preacher. He was excellent pastor, had a very powerful, strong church. And he had a habit of putting his necktie up on his shoulder. And everybody looking at that necktie, wondering when it was going to fall. After he left, several of the preachers in the ministry, when they'd stand to preach, they'd put their tie up trying to copy somebody else. I thought, how ridiculous. And they all stand there like they were frozen. God's frozen chosen. They would stand behind the pulpit like they were in some kind of a trance or something. Well, they asked me to preach. I was preaching. I come down off of the platform, started preaching to them, and the place went wild. They'd never seen anything like that. They loved it. Every time they had a chance to vote on who they wanted to hear preach, they voted for me. Not because I was a good preacher, I don't think that was it. But I didn't stand up there like I was some kind of rigid. I was going to give you 3 things if you want to be a success. Be yourself. Number 2, never stop studying and working to improve yourself. Now, most of you know this already, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I get up every morning between 4 and 5, and I will spend 1 to 2 hours studying every day, 7 days a week. If I miss that time, my day is messed up. That's just what I do. Number 3, keep a positive attitude and don't be afraid to try something new. Just have the courage to try. Dare to take a chance. Dare to take a risk. The more security that you have, the more you conjure up all kinds of things that could go wrong and lose what you got. Spend all your time trying to protect everything you've got. In the fight for security, we destroy the surprises of life. It's no wonder that so many people live their whole life bored out of their skull. The thrill of taking a chance to try something new. Number 5, the Alcatraz of past mistakes. Well, I tried it once and failed. I'm afraid to try again. How many of you know education is expensive? It costs a lot of money to get an education. I mean, a lot of people come out of college and have huge debts, university debts, college debts. They spend years trying to pay for the education that they had. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Most of us have tried that. That's really expensive. If you've tried something and failed, how do you handle it? Count your failures and your losses as education. You just learned something. They're not losses. That's just part of your education. Most people, when they failed, crawl into a psychological, mental hole and never get out of it. They're just trapped. It is said, and I think it's highly exaggerated, that Thomas Edison, had failed 10,000 times to find a filament for a light bulb. I think that's highly exaggerated. I don't think it was 10,000. It's probably 9,999. He had failed. Nothing he tried worked. And a reporter asked him one day, Mr. Edison, how does it feel to have failed 10,000 times to find a filament that would work for a light bulb? And he said, I have not failed 10,000 times. I have successfully found 10,000 ways that would not work. What a way to look at things. If you failed, it's just a way that didn't work. Try something else. If you're a child of God and you believe the Bible is true, it's the Word of God, did he say all things work together for those that love God and are called according to his purpose? All things? Does that include your failures? Does that include the mistakes you've made? If you take advantage of it and count it as part of your education, then you're going to win. Either way it goes, doesn't matter. You still won. Count your losses and your failures as a win. Why don't you bury all of your psychological skeletons instead of hiding them in a closet? People every day commit psychological suicide by destroying a portion of their conscience. The weapon they use is a double-barrel shotgun. It's called guilt and embarrassment. Have you ever felt guilty about something you did? Rest of you, wake up! Did you ever feel guilty about something you did? Were you embarrassed about it? You better pay attention. Feeling guilty about something that you did is because you did something you knew was wrong. And you wind up guilty. Guilty involves the soul of a man. Lying, cheating, stealing, and it's psychological suicide because both guilt and embarrassment destroys your confidence and creates a lot of worry in your life. A psychological skeleton is anything in your past that you feel is disgraceful and embarrassing. And it's the kind of thing you don't want anybody to know anything about. How many have done some of those? That's better. You're learning. You hope nobody ever finds out. Remember, everybody has some skeletons in their closet. I said everybody. Your skeleton is not unique. And in fact, none of us are perfect. Now, I wish I was as perfect as some people think they are. But none of us has a perfect background. Everyone has their share of skeletons. The old saying is, every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. God gave you a powerful mental memory bank. It's called the brain, the mind of man. Everything that ever happened to you is stored in your mind. As I get older, I get amazed that every once in a while, something that I hadn't thought about in years, maybe something that happened in childhood, will come floating back through my mind. How many have ever had that happen to you? It's just a little weird, isn't it? The older I get, the more I remember about things in the past, and the less I forget about things I need to do right now. And that's not funny a bit. You are the only one who has the key to your memory bank. You're the only one who can decide what you're going to pull out of your memory bank and how you're going to interpret it when you do. What are you saying, Mack? I'm saying choose to recall a memory as a positive. Learn to laugh at your failures. Learn to laugh at yourself and the mistakes you've made. I must have been out of my ever-loving mind to have done that. That was so stupid, I can't believe anybody'd be stupid enough to do that. Learn to laugh at yourself and the mistakes you've made. You're not the only one that's made mistakes. You're not perfect. One last thought. You can't do wrong by doing what's right. Think about it. No surgeon likes to amputate the leg of a wounded soldier. But he does it so the rest of the body can live. It's better to go through life with one leg than to lose your life trying to keep a leg that you couldn't keep. Should a surgeon feel guilty because he did something to save a life? Something that he didn't want to do, but he did it to save a life. A lot of times, it takes a lot of guts to do what's right. Indecision, not being able to make a decision, is one of the greatest causes of psychological suicide. You lock yourself up. Indecision can always be tracked to the inability to understand the concept. You can't do wrong by doing right. So what have we learned? Number one, fear of people. Fear of people, slavery. Number two, fear of failure. Respect your own ability, your own intelligence, your own opinions. Develop a good self-image. Number three, stop thinking you're too old. Age is just a state of mind. Number four, dare to take a chance. Dare to live dangerously. None of us knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So why worry about it? Number five, learn to accept your losses as an education. That way you win no matter what. Number six, you have a memory bank. You have memories. Everything that ever happened to you in your life is stored away up here. Everything you've ever thought, everything you've ever done is stored away up here. It's your memory bank. You choose what you're going to remember. And number seven, bury your psychological skeletons. Quit digging them up, reliving the bad things that's happened to you. Remember, your skeletons are common to all men. Everybody's got some. Stop making deposits of bad things in your memory bank. Now let me ask you one last question. How many would like to have a prison break today? Break out of the guilt and of the past. Break out of things that's held you back. Break out of these 7 things. Break out of your psychological Alcatraz.